Hi everyone, it's Lisa from the WOW Network here. Remember, we're here to support, guide and connect with LGBTQ women in the workplace. Today I'm joined by Katie Neeves to talk a little bit about her story and also about Trans Day of Visibility, which is this week. Nice to see you, Katie. How are you today?
Hi Lisa, lovely to see you. I'm fine, thank you.
Good stuff. So I take it you've got a busy week coming up with all your Trans Day of Visibility events.
I have, yeah. It's crazy actually. Yeah, it's like everybody wants you on that day, but then it's expanded to the whole week now. So I've got lots of stuff. I'm fully booked on Transgender Day of Visibility. Yeah, it's all good though.
Excellent. And tell me a bit about what Transgender Day of Visibility means to you as a trans woman, and what you think you're hoping to get across to people in the events that you're doing and in this interview just now.
Well, firstly, I mean, every day is Transgender Day of Visibility for me. I'm visible all the time. However, I think it's a good opportunity when you get days like this and like Trans Awareness Week in November. It's a good chance to actually focus on this and for organisations to hold events such as and things such as this interview now, just to focus the awareness on trans people, and it's a good chance for people just to come out and just say, this is who I am. This is the real me, and my whole mission that I'm on is just to show that trans people are just ordinary people who want to be happy, just like everyone else, and that's it. And I think so many people haven't met or don't know that they've met a trans person. Often they might have done, but they might not have known that they were trans. But they think they haven't met a trans person, and so they sort of think that we're just sort of some other sort of species or something. But we're not. We're just people. We're just ordinary people. And I think that's the good thing about this is that then if a lot of us sort of come out and say, yes, look, this is us. We are here. This is who we are. Then I think it's a really good thing.
Yeah, I think it is. It's such an important event. As you say, you're out every day, but it's almost like a celebration, isn't it? To be able to, just have the attention on trans people and to recognise your journees. So I know your journey started quite a few years ago. Do you want to tell everyone a bit more about that?
Yes, I am very old.
No.
Yeah, well, it started. I'm 51 now, but it started really back when I was at the age of about 3. Because I was assigned male at birth, and but based purely on my primary physical sex characteristics, i.e., what was between my legs. But say at the age of around 3 or 4, one of my earliest memories was of my mum catching me trying on a pair of my sister's knickers, and when I did it, it felt so right. I felt right. But then my mum caught me and she told me off. And for every day of the following week, she would pull my shorts down and she would check to make sure I was wearing my own pants. And it was humiliating. But it sowed the seed for a very long time that what I was doing was wrong. It was dirty. It was naughty. It was not what respectable people did. And so, but however much my mum told me off about it, the urge and the need to, as it was then, cross-dress would always be with me. And the thing is, it comes from a condition called gender dysphoria, which is a great feeling of unease caused by a mismatch between how I felt in my head and my heart, i.e. my gender identity, as opposed to my physical sex characteristics and the label that I've been given at birth. And that mismatch is called gender dysphoria. It can vary in intensity and it very often increases over time. And that's exactly what happened with me. And I was completely unprepared for it. Really was. I never in a million years thought I'd need to transition. Really didn't. But got to so I lived as a man for up to the age of 48. Before my gender dysphoria went through the roof and I didn't know what gender I was at all. Went on a whole long journey. I'm telling it very quickly because obviously you haven't got a huge amount of time in this interview, but then discovered my true gender identity. And then it's like, what now? What do I do with this piece of information eating away at me? And because the thing is, I hate it when people describe it as a lifestyle choice. There's no choice about being trans. It's like there's no choice about being gay. It's just who you are. I am trans, and that's it. The only choice I had was whether I decided to transition or not. And the research that I did showed that most people who decide to trans people who decide to transition, then they usually after the initial loss, pain and heartache and bumpy journey along the way, usually go on to lead happy and contented lives. Whereas many that decide not to transition and to live their lives for other people, then sadly they're often the ones that end up in a spiral of depression or often worse. So the urge to live my truth was just so overwhelmingly strong, because I was finally at peace with myself. I knew who I was, and it felt amazing to know that. So I just had to face it head on and crack on with it. But yeah, it's been a tough journey, but I feel so much happier for it. I really do feel amazing.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it sounds like self-acceptance was a big part of it for you, and that takes an enormous amount of courage. I think especially the things we do when we're young and the way people react to us as children can really define your adult life hugely, even such a small incident as you mentioned.
Yeah. And I don't blame my mum for that. I mean, that was the early 70s, and it's just how things were then. I mean, if you think then, I mean, I was born in 1969, only 2 years earlier. So in 1967, that was when it was made legal to be a gay man. So, before then it was always legal to be a lesbian, but it was illegal to be a gay man up until 1967. Then they only partially legalized it. And I know that's a completely separate issue, but it shows you how things were then, and there was lots of gay bashing in the 70s and everything, and that was how things were. So nobody ever spoke about trans people. We're about 30 years behind gay and lesbian people. we're way
agreed
we're way behind.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you mention legalizing things, because I definitely see a correlation between legalizing and sort of people coming around to the idea and having more conversations around. So when gay male sex was legalized, and then when the age was reduced, and when we had civil partnerships and then marriage, it brought those conversations to up to the surface. Obviously now there's a lot of stuff around GRA, and I'm sure it means that you're having a lot more conversations around that as well. What are your sort of thoughts and feelings around that? There's a lot of misinformation around. Let's just be very, very clear.
Huge amount of misinformation. Yeah, I mean, the last 3 years with the consultation on the reform of the Gender Recognition Act 2004 have been horrific, and it's stirred up so much hate. And there are lots of anti-trans hate groups that are out there, and they're very well organised and they're very well funded, and they've got friends in very high places, and they are doing a lot of damage to the trans community. They really are. And particularly in the last year, we were under a severe threat of having a lot of our rights being taken away, and it was a very, very, very severe threat, and it could have easily have happened. But we fought back, and although we didn't manage to make any progress with the reform of the Gender Recognition Act, all they managed to do was just make getting a gender recognition certificate a bit cheaper, and they're putting the application online instead of it being paper. Well, big deal. We actually haven't made any progress, but we actually just held off the rollback of our rights. But they are still under threat. A lot of the anti-trans lobby are lobbying for trans. It's aimed at trans women. Let's face it. They want to stop. 100%. They want to stop trans women from using female-only spaces because they don't see us as women. So basically, they would want me to use the gents' toilets. How do you think I'd get on using the gents' toilets?
I know. Yeah. I find it ludicrous. Many of my friends, I'm very proud to say many of my friends are trans women, and they are trans women. They are not men.
Women.
I'm very glad to go to the loo with them.
Exactly.
When we're not in COVID, of course.
Well, we're not a threat to anyone. We just want a wee in safety, the same as you do. That's it. That is all it is. And it's a constant source of anxiety, because many trans women, I mean, I've been very lucky. I've never had any problems using the public loos, but many of my trans friends have, and also I've got a lot of butch lesbian friends as well, and because they've got a more masculine appearance, they have a lot of hassle in women's loos as well. They get it. I mean, I just make sure that when I use ladies' loos, that I either don't speak or I speak very quietly, because obviously I've still got a deep voice, and so I just make sure of that. Also, my daughter's only 9, and she still calls me dad, and I'm proud to be a dad. I'll always be a dad, and I'm proud to be a dad, and I love her calling me dad. But what I'm trying to get her to do is to call me dad at home in private, but then Katie in public. She's not quite there with it yet. She's getting there. She's nearly there with it. But one place I absolutely ban her calling me dad is when we're in the ladies. But we had one incident one time when I was in a cubicle, a couple of women either side of me, and my daughter was just outside my cubicle door. I heard this little voice through from the door saying, "Dad." I thought, oh, here we go. And then there was a pause, and then she said, and then she realised what she said. She said, "Katie." And I thought, well, it's too late now, isn't it? Yeah. And then she said, "So are you going to start having periods now then?" I said, "No, don't do this to me. Don't do it to me." And I said, "No, darling," in the highest voice I could muster at the time. And then there was a pause, and then she said, "So why is that then?" I thought, "Oh no, just
now."
I said, "I'll tell you later, darling. You know, get me out of it. Just get me."
Oh,
terrible.
Dear.
Kids,
Katie, I feel your pain. I have an 8 and a 10-year-old, so yes, there's definitely been some embarrassing instances in public. Absolutely, but that's interesting, isn't it? That you still feel the need, and I can understand it, no criticism, but you still feel the need to censor your behaviour in public and your daughter's behaviour in public. And isn't that sad? That we're not there yet. That you're able to actually freely be yourself. Yeah,
I shouldn't have to censor what my daughter calls me. I'd love her just to be able to call me dad all the time because I'm proud to be a dad, and I love being a dad, and I love people knowing that I'm her dad. But it's just that it's a gender term. It wouldn't be right for her to call me mum because she's already got a mum, and I don't want to take that away from her mum. Yeah, but she's accepted that her dad's female, so why can't other people?
I know. Children often accept things a lot quicker, though, don't they?
Oh, children are great. It's us adults that are screwed up.
So it's interesting. Obviously, you transitioned later on in life. Is there anything that you would say to your younger self about transitioning? Anything that you've learned that you would have passed back, or that you'd like to pass on to people who are still thinking about transitioning?
I would. When you're young, you're so worried about what other people think about you. And then as you get older, you realise that nobody gives a damn. Yeah, they really don't. And, I used to worry about, going out and what are people going to say? Yeah, and I remember the first time going out, you're wearing a dress and everything, and first time, working as female and living full time as female, and all that sort of thing, worrying what other people think. Nobody gives a damn. They're just so wrapped up in their own lives. They've got their own worries and worrying about what other people think of them. But people really don't care. And I found that the vast majority of people are very accepting. And okay, often they use clumsy language, but then I can help them with that because that's what I do, with my trans awareness training and public speaking and all that stuff. I can help them with all of that. But the vast majority of people are very accepting. I mean, online is different. Online, a lot of people hide behind the anonymity that the social media platforms give them because you don't have to provide any ID when you sign up for these things. And so they have their fake names and their avatars, and then they can be as vile as they like because they're not accountable for what they say. And the trouble is that other trans people, they see that and they think that it's going to be like that in real life. Mm-hmm. But it's not. In real life, I've been very well accepted. I mean, yes, I get lots of abuse online, but that's just because I'm reasonably high profile now, and I've stuck my head well and truly above the parapet. And so, and I recently got 1,000 messages of hate, and I know that it's part of the job. It shouldn't be part of the job, but it is. But it's not. That's not a true representation of real life.
Yeah, agreed. And I think you're right. It does take a certain degree of resilience, doesn't it, to be able to, as I say, put your head above the parapet. And, I've had hate messages just for being a trans ally. And, I am a cis woman and, they're really not that interested in me. But there you go. So you touched upon some of your work that you do. Can you tell us a bit more about Cool to Be Trans?
Yeah. I formed it to basically, I'm on a mission to do two things. So one is to reach out to other trans people just to let them know that it's okay to be trans. because it really is okay to be trans. But so many trans people don't know that, especially at the start of their journey, because they think that, they see all this hate online and they think it's going to be like that in real life. And so they put an awful lot of pressure on themselves, and often they decide then not to transition. But then I know myself that's not a route to happiness, because you'll just be constantly fighting your gender dysphoria the whole time, and the route to happiness is acceptance and just living your best life. So I'm not trying to persuade anybody to be trans. You could never do that. It's like persuading somebody to be gay. You can't. You either are or you're not. So but it's just, I'm just here to let them know that it's okay to be trans, your world won't cave in. My world has expanded enormously, and it's fantastic. I'm loving my new life. I really am. So that's one part of the mission. And then the other part is to educate everybody else, and just to show them that trans people are just ordinary people who want to be safe, loved and happy, just like everyone else. And that is it. So I think that a lot of prejudice and bigotry comes from a fear of the unknown. So if you can take that unknown away, then you're doing a really, really good thing. So the more so it's all about education, really. So the more education there is, then the more acceptance there'll be. The more acceptance there'll be, the easier it will be for other trans people to A, admit to themselves they're trans, because that's the hardest thing, and B, do something about it and live their best life. That's what we want to do, really, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm doing trans awareness training, public speaking, media appearances, and I also quite often give support to other trans people. Often organisations get me in so quite often, like if a trans member of staff comes out maybe to their HR department, and they work out a plan for their coming out, and and telling their colleagues, and then often I'm wheeled in to do some trans awareness training to bring the staff up to speed so that they know what it is and what it. I mean, I know that's reactionary, and it's much better to actually be proactive. And to do the training in advance, so that
absolutely
you've got a culture of acceptance.
But let's be realistic.
but so many haven't got that, and they haven't got a transition at work policy, and so as soon as someone comes out as trans, the HR people go run away.
It's funny, isn't it? I think sometimes we tie ourselves up in knots, and especially with transition in the workplace policies. Some of them are just so incredibly detailed and clearly just written by maybe one trans person, and looking at their journey and just their journey. Everyone transitions in different ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everybody's transition is unique to them, and how I came out isn't going to, well, very likely isn't going to be how most people want to come out. Most people, want to come out in a much more gentle way than I did. Mine was pretty extreme. But that's but they do it however's comfortable to them and in their own time at their own pace. And the onus shouldn't be on that trans person to do all the educating and to educate.
Exactly.
They should, no way. You got to bring in external people who can do it and take that pressure off that trans person. They've got enough pressure on them. They shouldn't be pressurized into being an encyclopedia on everything trans.
Yeah, no, but you're right. It's absolutely exhausting. No matter what your protected characteristic is, if you are the only person there and being lent on for all that information, and also lent on for being that single role model for all the other staff, that is exhausting and draining, isn't it?
Completely. Yeah. And I mean obviously this is what I do for a living, but it is every time I tell my story and do it, it is draining, and you're giving an awful lot of yourself, so you're doing it the whole time. But I'm used to doing it, and this is what I do, so that's absolutely fine. And that thing is, I've got a certain amount of resilience, so I can put up with all sorts of abuse, and I can handle it, and I can handle hecklers, and the thing is that because people can see that, I don't often get picked on, because they've realised bullies don't pick on people who are strong, mm-hmm. or perceived to be strong. They pick on the weakest. They go for the easy targets, don't they? So they I think they get the idea that when I'm standing in front of an audience, they know that I've faced all sorts of stuff, and so a little insult from one person that I can handle no problem at all, and I can shoot them down in flames. so I tend to sort of not do it. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what makes you a really good role model, though, is because you have that resilience as well as that sort of strength and insight, and all the work that you're doing, to educate people is just fantastic. So totally in awe of you. Is there any sort of message that you'd like to put out for the Trans Day of Visibility?
Yeah, I just like to say, look out for as much information as you can about it, learn as much as you can. Have some trans awareness training, and so you actually get to know what it's all about. There's lots of information on my website if you want to have a look at that. Educate yourself on it, and just know that. And the other thing is that if you ever, one of the biggest things I would say about being a trans ally is if you ever hear any transphobic remarks or anything, then stand up for trans people. Don't just let that comment go. I know it might be the easiest thing to do in polite conversation. Don't let it go. Stand up for it and stand up for trans people and sort of say, well, actually, no, that's not right. And trans people say we are just ordinary people. That's really all it is.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's so important as allies that we do stand up for people, and I always think it's so much more powerful if you have an ally. It's also less exhausting, but it's also more powerful if you have an ally that is saying that's not okay. I'm not trans. That's not okay.
Well, the thing is that we're such a small minority. We're only about 1% of the population, but then that's still a reasonable amount. I mean, if we've got a population of what was it, 66 million, something like that, then that's 660,000 people. It's a lot of people. So it's still a significant amount of people. But the thing is, because we are such a small minority overall, we can't make all these changes ourselves. We need the help of our allies. So we need as many allies as we can get. So the more the merrier. So if just by doing this interview, if we can get a few more allies, then that's brilliant.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Katie, and I wish you all the success with Cool to Be Trans.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.